I have an amazing secret. While I love doing luxury events and having really high-end decor that our clients can rent from us, some clients can't always do that, right? Some weddings require more budget-friendly options. I was one of those individuals when I got married. So I'm sharing today all the cool kind of luxury dupes and tips and tricks that I have found on Amazon that are on our storefront for those of you who maybe don't want to rent higher end things from a florist, but you want to see what kind of options are out there on Amazon that you can get. I'm going to tell you all about the quantities we'd recommend for some of these decor items, how we use them ourselves, some of the things that we have used that our clients have reused and purchased from us, and how we use those things. So get ready. Let's go. All right, so we're in the studio, and the reason why I wanted to do this video today was, again, I love creating luxury experiences, and especially when we're renting higher end options out to our clients, I think that is really an elevated experience. People don't have to worry about purchasing things. We clean it up, we bring it in, it's really wonderful. However, I was not that bride for my own wedding. I had a lot of friends that helped. I am very creative, so I try to do a lot on my own because the budget just wasn't there. And I know a lot of people are in that same situation. So I'm here to help today because we have a really great Amazon storefront that we're adding a lot more things into. I wanted to share how we would recommend using certain things that are really awesome kind of dupes and hacks for more luxury looking items that if you were interested in purchasing these on our Amazon storefront, you could easily like resell them after your wedding or use them as home decor. There are lots of options. So just wanted to kind of share my favorite budget friendly options for event and wedding centerpieces specifically, particularly on the end of like candles and like floral vases. Share with you a little bit about the quantities, how we organize those things for events, how we think about those things on a tablescape, and go from there. There's also going to be a little bit of foraging in this video, so if you're interested in that, in our kind of weekly seasonal incorporating of flowers that we have in this part of the country in the U.S., we also will be doing a little bit of that. All right, so to get started, I wanted to share something that I feel is super popular right now, which is basically taper candles that can be either on their own, like these three gold taper candles. I'll move these into the center so you can see them. So kind of different height options here. These have LED candles in them because another trend I'm seeing a lot of is that venues are actually not allowing either not allowing real candles, or you have to have like some kind of candle shade over them, which is fine if they're real candles. We do that too. But I wanted to share a little bit just first and foremost about these gold tapers because I think there's a lot you can do with them. We have an option similar to these on our Amazon storefront that, again, you can find LED tapers to put in them, which are really pretty. Tapers, by the way, these days, these LED candles look so realistic. They are really, really lovely. I don't know if you can kind of see like from a distance and in photos, they look very much similar to any type of real candle. Even up close, they don't look bad. They have often like real wax at the base. They kind of move. What I love about these too is like for cleanup, they actually all come with a little remote that you can turn on like candle mode and then turn them off, and it is so convenient. So that's just my plug for that. So we have all of this currently in our Amazon storefront that you can kind of take a peek at and get a sense of like pricing for those things. But like I said, a lot of venues now, right? If you don't want to go the LED route, and I get that, a lot of people really prefer the look of real candles, then you can go kind of the glass shade and taper route if you'd like to, or even like a pillar candle. So something more like this, you could easily put in here and would be super pretty. But I wanted to share a little bit about how we think about additional types of taper candles. So again, we have all of these in our shop, but really simple, just glass taper holder, taper candle. These can be, you'll notice I have kind of an ivory. Usually the LEDs come in like a white or ivory. You can get taper candles now in all kinds of colors. Again, we have a variety of colors on some options in the shop. But what I like about doing the real candle in a vase, a couple things. If you order your, various size vases, let's say, or candle glass shades, I actually recommend you can get like they're technically vases, but you can put the candles inside of them. They don't have to be like sometimes glass cylinders. They're called something different. So glass cylinders versus just a tall glass vase. can sometimes cost more because they're like shades for the taper candles and they are very specialized. They don't have a bottom typically to them. They look beautiful and they're also an option, but I think if you're like in a DIY kind of event situation, you don't necessarily need them. So let's say you get an order of like a variety of glass vases that are taller. You can put these tapers, and I would be careful. I would lean it on its side to put another glass piece in so you don't break anything, but kind of lean it over, put your taper holder and candle in there. And a couple of hacks on this. So first, tip it over a little bit while you're putting things in so the glass is not breaking or potentially breaking in there. But if, let's say, this candle, you want to do as much measuring as you can in advance, right, to match the candle size to the vase that it's going to be in, or the cylinder it's going to be in. But if, let's say, you didn't account for like the height of the glass taper holder, for example, right, you have like an extra 1.5 inches for this candle, and it's now going to be over the edge, the lip of the vase. What you can actually do that I love, and I have done previously, even when we've used, very customized real wax taper candles in glass cylinders, and everything is just so, sometimes you still try to measure, and when it comes to the event, you still have to cut a little bit of that off to make sure that flame is actually inside of that glass. You can always just grab a good pair of shears or a knife and cut the bottom of the taper candle to then fit lower down into your holder. So you do not have to buy exact, measurements. If you can't find them, don't stress. You can absolutely cut a real wax candle. You can't do that obviously with the LEDs, but then you don't need the shades for these either, typically for venues, unless you just like the look of it. So this, I think, is a really good option for, just you can get tapers. You can even get tapers in all one size and then cut down what you need. It takes a little bit extra time, but it's doable. The other thing you see me doing, I keep like messing with this because I notice that it's like uneven. Another kind of tip, trick, and hack that I like to use is you get a little bit of floral putty. I got white floral putty that I need to put a little bit more on these. You can also get it in green, to match maybe the base of whatever you're using, but you put a little putty on the end and then stick that into your candle holder. And like I said, I need to put more in this one. There's only a little bit left because we've actually used these for some events, but that helps also for your candles to stay in place. So that always makes a really nice statement. It's a little bit extra effort, but totally worth it. So those are kind of my thoughts. We also have some pillar LED lights in the shop, so you can kind of see, how you could incorporate those things. I will say from like a numbers perspective on like how to think about how you're placing these items on, for example, like a farmhouse rectangular table. I like to think of things in uneven groups of numbers. So typically things that are in a 3 or 5 grouping really tend to look beautiful. So for example, like this 3 grouping of gold, or brass candle holders looks really beautiful together. A group of probably 2 and then maybe a smaller, kind of glass shade look always looks so beautiful. If you're in the middle of a round table, you could just do one grouping of that. It would look fantastic. If you have like the longer farmhouse tables that are really popular right now too, which are also so beautiful, you could do even 2 or 3 sets of candles with maybe an arrangement or 2 right on either side of maybe the center candle arrangement. So you really have options. A lot of times florists joke, like flower and decor math can be kind of challenging in that way, right? Because if you're going to think about, okay, let's say for a big farmhouse table, if you want to have 2 groups, let's say of candles, and then 3 floral arrangements around each of those 2 groups, right? And one in between on a table, you really have to think about then stem count and candle count, right? So you have 2 groups of 3 candles times 10 tables. So you actually need 60 candles in that case, right? So you just kind of have to think about that math and think about it in that way. What do you need for each table to make it look full or make it look like you want? And then do that math to multiply by the number of tables you have, right? You can also think about maybe do you need extra candles for the welcome area or the, gift table? All these things come into play. So just thinking about those things, I think really helps understand like the number that you would need to get to when you're actually ordering. So just food for thought on that. The other thing I want to talk about is that there are other ways to use these vases other than with candles, right? So you can actually fill these with water and have like a little floating candle inside. That's super pretty, very cost effective. You could, I've seen a lot of brides for cost savings, again, if you're kind of more in that DIY space, you could just get one vase, maybe a little bit lower, fill it with just a little bit of water, and you can reuse your bridesmaids bouquets as centerpieces maybe for some of the tables. Just make sure your vase is a little bit lower, because typically those bridesmaids bouquets will be cut a little bit shorter, right? So you want to make them look full in that vase. So the shorter the vase, the better. Maybe half the size would be perfect. You could just put it right in and it'd be a super cute little centerpiece for some of the tables, right? And then maybe you just do candles for the others. So just some kind of budget friendly thinking there. Again, with if you like the look of like little taper, excuse me, tea light candles, votive holders, I again recommend in threes. I've even seen where we've done one of these where we have like a couple of these beauties, and then we have like three tapers even in between, or excuse me, three votives in between the tapers, right? So you're kind of have this like little pretty mix of like a grouping. I'll move this up here so you can kind of see it, of different candles and options. And I think this is really pretty. You can do greenery around this and just a few little pops of maybe a floral color. So the sky is the limit, honestly, with a lot of these options. And I think the more you just consider what is maybe in your budget, like what experience you want to have for your guests. If you love the romantic look of candles, then you should absolutely just get a couple sets of these, figure out how many you need for your tables. Maybe you just do greenery and flowers sparingly, but I think there are absolutely ways to get that high-end look, and you don't have to like bust the budget. So, okay, now I want to talk about bud vases. So I fill these up with water. I have my shears, and what I really love, I'm gonna move some of these things, is that if you've seen some of our past foraging videos, right, we have used some of the things I have in this vase, but they were different colors. And so now we're later in the season in fall, and our beauty berry is this beautiful jewel toned purple. We have a couple of other just really pretty filler flowers, honestly, and I love that they were all a similar color. So I wanted to talk about kind of how to be smart about arranging bud vases, because I do think it's easy to just stick things in bud vases, and honestly, half the time they're going to look really great. You kind of can't do too much wrong here, but I think if you incorporate some of these tips, you can really elevate the look, and that's what sometimes people don't quite get to that level. And I'd love to help you as much as I can, right? That's why I'm here. I want to help make it beautiful, but budget friendly if needed, right? So, okay, so what I like to do is actually, there are a couple things you can do. And these beauty berries are actually, to my knowledge, they are edible, which is really wild. I don't know that they taste great, but be careful when you are, this is like a PSA, be careful when you are foraging. If you are like in my yard, I obviously know what I grow, but sometimes I forage, and I look for things out in places that I know are legal, for me to cut, and that won't be an issue, and that help regrow, if needed, around the environment that I am working. But be careful when you are foraging if you decide to go that route. And I know I have a couple of videos on this, but there are some really cool apps. Like I think Picture This is one of them, but just apps that you can kind of identify plants if you're not sure. I, on one occasion, have picked up, or maybe two occasions, if I'm being honest, have picked up some things that I thought looked like other things, and ended up being things that were not really good to have around. And I mean, obviously, we're not eating these things ideally, but it's good to know what is, if you're really looking for something specific, or if you find something that's really pretty, to make sure that it's okay to have around your house, right? So just my little PSA there. But these, I know they're in my yard, they're beautiful. And I love showing you guys what we can do seasonally with things that are around me and our environment here in Florida, at least, and across the country as I travel. I just actually had a video in Alaska while I was visiting family. So it's possible to do it in all types of climates, which I love too. But for this arrangement, I'm going to start with these beauty berries, and I am going to just cut off the green leafy part here. And they really stick out. The leaves are funny. They're kind of intense on these, which I think is interesting. And what I like to do is kind of think about arranging in a couple of different ways. You can either have your arrangement be kind of all one type of flower in each of the vases, which I think can be really beautiful and very simple. Like that's a very easy way to kind of work with what you have. And you don't have to have like a whole bunch of design experience necessarily for that. Now, the other thing though that I really like to do, and I think this is where you can elevate the look a little bit more, is to kind of try to incorporate pieces of of maybe two of, like, let's say we're working with 3 flowers today, maybe two of the vases have similar things to another two. They're not perfectly identical to what you're putting in each one of them, but I think that adds visual interest. It also makes it feel cohesive, but not so formulaic that it's like we're trying so hard. And I think it elevates the look when we go a little bit in, maybe not a completely unusual direction, but maybe it's like a little bit unexpected, but still cohesive. So that's sort of my takeaway with that. So what I'm doing here is just taking off the greenery at the bottom, cutting at a 45-degree angle as always, and then just kind of placing these pieces in each. And so I do often have, as I'm saying that, so I'll move away so you can kind of see. I do often have, for example, I have this really pretty little kind of deep magenta filler flower in all three. So that's going to be my cohesive piece. But then I only have the beauty berry in these kind of front two pieces. And then this gorgeous green, at times of the year it's green. It's now a beautiful dark purple color filler. I'm going to call it a greenery filler, but it's not green. Can kind of go in the other two vessels. And I feel like, again, taking off those bottom pieces, kind of giving it this unique look. And then I'm going to bring this in for the camera so you can kind of see a little bit closer how this looks. But I really, 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 really cannot stress enough that incorporating two or three of the same stem, so not in all three vases, but in like two of the three for each stem, and then maybe having one more cohesive stem, is just so fun. And I actually think this is too full. Look at that. Look at all those berries. It's like too full for me to put in. I also like, speaking of that, I also like to have a little negative space for bud vases. I think when you try to do more, it actually sometimes becomes less. So for bud vases, when you are working, you really want to make sure there's, like, you see this kind of negative space in some of these areas. Definitely make sure you're keeping that. I think that's what makes it look so stunning and so unusual. I am going to go ahead, I think, and put maybe one of these little guys in here too. And just see how I like that. Yeah, let's get a close up and see how we like it. So again, we're incorporating similar elements, but not in every single bud vase. And I just love how there's some negative space, there's some dimension, and it's so simple, but very chic, right? All right. I'm so glad we got to share these tips and tricks with you. Check out our Amazon storefront and feel free to share with others these luxury on a budget secrets.